joining us for another Defunkt exclusive video. I'm here with Fran Sanders of Public Poetry to talk about your new Cinepoetry Workshop. Thanks for doing this, Fran.
Oh, I'm really excited to talk about it. I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for poets to have new options and new ways to work with their poetry.
Absolutely. Where did this idea come from? I know that you had the Real Poetry competition a little over a year ago. That's REEL.
Right, it's Real Poetry, Houston, Texas, and it is in fact going to be an annual event. It's international, it's curated, it involves cinepoetry, cinepoems, it involves documentaries, and also video of local artists where we will film spoken word or slam or performance videos, and then we ask the poets to actually perform live and cut the sound while showing their film in the background. There is one really important thing I wanted to mention, which is that we are accepting submissions in Spanish.
Yes.
So
I was going to ask about that because I think that that's really reflective of the poetry scene here in Houston, really all over the Southwest, but particularly in Houston. Could you tell me a little more about what was behind the decision to do that?
exactly what you talked about. I mean, there is a huge population for whom Spanish is their first language. And not only here, but also I would love to see submissions coming from Mexico. I'd love to see submissions coming from anywhere in South Central Latin America in general, you know, places where that language is spoken. It's a gorgeous language.
Absolutely.
And there's some remarkable poetry that has been written and is being written now in that language.
And so you were saying for submissions, for those who want to submit, 5 minutes max for Cinepoetry. What are the other timelines?
15 minutes for documentaries, and the documentaries can be about the life of a poet, the making of a poet, any poetry related mini documentary at 15 minutes, and then 3 minutes for the videos of spoken word, performance, slam.
That's fantastic. So this is really a marriage of poetry as it's appeared on the written page or spoken out loud in a multimedia film fashion. That's really exciting. So I'm a poet. Let's say I want to take the Cinepoetry Workshop. Do I need a camera? What do I need to bring?
You need to bring yourself, and you need to bring some poems that you're thinking about making into films. So basically the workshop is 6 weeks. The first 2 weeks you're going to be looking at what is cinepoetry. You're going to be seeing lots of examples of different ways that people have interpreted their poems on film or on video. And then the next 2 weeks we're going to be getting into all the technical details of what kinds of things you can do with what kinds of equipment. And then the 5th session will be specifically honing in on, presumably by this time, one poem that you feel strongest about in terms of making into a cinepoem, making into a film. And the last session you'll be working with, you'll be meeting professional filmmakers and cinematographers, and it's a kind of meetup situation.
To kind of pair you off with someone to make that cinepoem.
Exactly.
What kind of, would a poem that's heavy in imagery lend itself to cinepoetry more than, say, a narrative one, or is it really just an open...
Well, that's really what you're going to be getting into in the workshop, so that you'll have a real sense of what does work best and where the potential pitfalls are, and mostly how to really optimize your voice as a poet on film. So it's going to be taught by 3 different instructors. They're all faculty in film and video, and 2 of them also teach creative writing. So you're going to get both perspectives, and I think that it's a great opportunity to really explore another area where, as a poet, your voice can be heard. It's also a fabulous way to document your
Yes.
work.
You know, it's already happening in, like, you know, there's the Insta poets that are, some of whom have become really really famous. Whether how I feel about them, I will reserve my opinion to myself. But what it matters is that it's having an effect, and I think it's keeping poetry relevant. A lot of
Exactly.
times people say that it's true that of all the mediums, the written word and is kind of overshadowed by music and film. So this is an interesting way to kind of synthesize those things. What gave birth to this idea for you? I mean, where did it come from?
So the workshop specifically, I thought about because last year when we launched the festival, we had a really large number of submissions from all over the world. I mean, everywhere from Taiwan to Finland to the Ukraine to Australia, and there were some very sophisticated um, cinepoems being shown, and I wanted Houston poets to have an opportunity to basically up their game, to learn how they can optimize their work as well. And so that was the impetus for the workshop. The impetus for the festival was actually the fact that the U.S. kind of lags behind other countries as far as poetry is concerned in many respects. I mean, they're enormously active poetry scene, especially here in Houston, that's really remarkable. There are different things going on in other parts of the world, in Europe especially. There are a lot of people who are exploring this avenue of poetry and film, and I was looking at some of the work that was coming out of those festivals, and quite honestly, it knocked my socks off. When it's good,
You just know.
yeah, it
Those
just
examples going to be shown in the workshop. Some of the submissions, or what kind of examples?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I'm not teaching it, so I don't know what is being shown. I know that it will be historical, so it will start with some of the earliest films that were done by the surrealists,
Yes.
and presumably go all the way through to some of the really exciting things that are happening now.